Not quite, but close. Let's set the scene. Imagine the heart of American power, the White House, bathed in the soft glow of early morning. The city is just waking up, the air is thick with anticipation, and the world's most powerful office is about to face a challenge no one saw coming. It's a Tuesday morning in the White House, July 15, 2025. The sun is rising over Washington, D.C., casting long shadows across the marble columns and manicured lawns. Inside, the day begins like any other. Staffers shuffle papers, coffee brews, and the hum of government business fills the halls. Former President Donald Trump, back in the Oval Office after a historic political comeback, is having what seems like a perfectly normal day. He's reviewing documents, making calls, and preparing for another round of meetings. The mood is routine, almost mundane, as if nothing could possibly disrupt the steady rhythm of presidential life. Suddenly, the calm is shattered. An aide bursts into the room, urgency written all over their face. They lean in, whispering something that instantly wipes the confidence from Trump's expression. Confusion flickers across his face and the room tenses. Something big is happening, something no one in this building expected. The news is out. Canada, our friendly neighbor to the north, has just made a bold move. They've turned down the energy dial, sending shockwaves through the corridors of power in Washington. It's not a blackout, but it's a message, loud and clear. The lights in the White House don't flicker, but the symbolism is impossible to ignore. Canada is reminding the United States that it holds a powerful card, energy. And for the first time in recent memory, they're not afraid to play it. Imagine your polite, dependable neighbor suddenly turning off your water without warning. You're left standing at the sink, baffled and a little bit helpless. That's exactly how Washington feels right now, caught off guard by a country everyone thought they could always count on. The United States, the world's undisputed superpower, is suddenly being put in a diplomatic timeout by Canada. It's a stunning reversal of roles, and it leaves everyone asking, how did we get here? At the center of this unfolding drama is Mark Carney, a name that's about to become very familiar in Washington. Carney, a soft-spoken Canadian banker with a reputation for calm under pressure, is now the architect of a move that's shaking the foundations of North American relations. Newsrooms across America erupt into chaos. Pundits scramble to make sense of the situation. Is this the start of an energy crisis? Are we really at odds with Canada, the country we share the world's longest peaceful border with? The questions come fast and furious, and no one seems to have the answers. America has faced down global threats before, wars, recessions, even pandemics, but being strong-armed by the country that gave us poutine, maple syrup, and hockey? That's a twist no one saw coming. The shock is palpable, from the halls of Congress to living rooms across the nation. For generations, the US-Canada relationship has been a bedrock of stability, a constant in an unpredictable world. The border is the world's longest undefended, a symbol of trust and cooperation. The idea that this cozy relationship could suddenly have a hard edge is a wake-up call for everyone. In back rooms and boardrooms, the mood shifts from complacency to concern. The realization dawns that even the closest friendships can be tested, and that power dynamics can change in an instant. The stakes are high and the tension is real. It's like discovering that your quiet, unassuming cousin is actually a world champion cage fighter, capable of throwing a punch when you least expect it. The US is forced to reconsider everything it thought it knew about its northern neighbor. The game has changed. With a single calculated move, Canada has reminded the world of its power. The United States, caught flat-footed, must now scramble to respond, all because of a quiet Canadian banker and a whole lot of energy flowing across the border. And so, the drama began. The world watched as two old friends found themselves on opposite sides of a high-stakes energy standoff, one that would test the limits of diplomacy, power, and trust. And meet our main characters. First, Donald J. Trump, a man who needs no introduction yet always insists on making one. He's a figure who has dominated headlines, boardrooms, and ballots for decades, and he thrives in the spotlight. Whether it's the glitz of Manhattan real estate or the roar of a campaign rally, Trump is always at the center of attention, commanding the room with his larger-than-life persona. The man who loves a deal, a rally, and being the loudest voice in the room. For Trump, every moment is an opportunity to win, to outmaneuver, to make headlines. He's built his brand on boldness, on the art of the deal, and on never backing down from a fight, especially if there's an audience watching. He relishes the chaos, the energy, the spectacle of it all. He sees the world as a series of negotiations where America always wins. For Trump, strength is everything. He wants to be the one calling the shots, setting the terms, and walking away with the best deal. In his mind, compromise is weakness, and hesitation is defeat. He's always looking for leverage, always pushing for more, always ready to turn up the pressure. On the other side, Mark Carney. A name that might not be as instantly recognizable, but in the world of global finance, he's a heavyweight. Carney is the quiet force behind some of the world's most important economic decisions, a man whose influence stretches from Ottawa to London and beyond, the anti-Trump, a Canadian economist, former head of the Bank of Canada and Bank of England. Carney's reputation is built on intellect, stability, and a deep understanding of the global financial system. He's the kind of leader who prefers data to drama and strategy to spectacle. Carney is calm, strategic, and plays the long game. While Trump is playing checkers, Carney is playing three-dimensional chess. He anticipates moves before they're made, and he's always thinking several steps ahead. Where Trump seeks the quick win, Carney is building a foundation for lasting success. Trump expects a public brawl, a Twitter feud, something he can spin into a headline or a rallying cry. He's used to opponents who fight on his terms, in the open, with bluster and bravado, but Carney doesn't play by those rules. He's not interested in the spotlight or the soundbite. He uses the system itself as his weapon, understanding the economic web that binds the US and Canada. True power isn't about shouting, it's about knowing which valve to turn, which lever to pull, and when to do it. Carney's influence is subtle but profound, shaping outcomes behind the scenes. This quiet, strategic approach was the perfect counter to Trump's confrontational style. It was a clash not just of personalities but of philosophies, one loud and brash, the other measured and methodical. The stage was set for an epic, unexpected showdown, where the outcome would hinge on more than just words or tweets. Two very different leaders, one high-stakes game, and the world was watching, waiting to see which approach would prevail in this battle of wills and wits. The stakes were enormous, and the consequences would ripple far beyond their own borders. Why was Canada's move such a big deal? To understand this, you have to look at the deep, often invisible ties that bind the US and Canada together, especially when it comes to energy. The US and Canada are connected by a massive, intricate network of pipes, wires, and railways. These aren't just lines on a map, they're the lifelines of two economies, stretching thousands of miles across forests, prairies, and cities. Canada is a powerhouse when it comes to energy production. It's one of the world's top producers of oil, natural gas, and hydroelectricity, with vast reserves and advanced infrastructure. Meanwhile, the US is a massive consumer, with millions of homes, cars, and factories relying on a steady, affordable flow of energy to keep the country running. For decades, Canada has sent energy south, fueling American homes, cars, and factories. Every day, oil, gas, and electricity cross the border, often unnoticed, but absolutely essential. Pipelines snake their way from Alberta's oil sands to US refineries, carrying millions of barrels of crude oil and natural gas. This infrastructure is the backbone of North America's energy security. High-voltage power lines deliver clean hydroelectricity from Quebec all the way to New York and even as far as California, lighting up cities and powering industries. This cross-border relationship is one of the world's largest and most complex energy trades, involving billions of dollars and countless jobs on both sides. American refineries are specifically designed to process Canadian oil, and the power grids are synchronized to ensure reliability and efficiency. The entire system is built on decades of trust, routine, and mutual benefit, not on the expectation of a strategic power play or sudden disruption. For years, policymakers simply took this arrangement for granted, like the sun rising each morning or the endless traffic in Los Angeles. It was just the way things worked. So, when Canada hinted at rethinking this arrangement, no one in Washington had a backup plan. The idea that this flow could be interrupted caught everyone off guard. That was the critical vulnerability. An entire system built on habit, suddenly exposed to the risk of change. So, what did Mark Carney do? He didn't shut off the taps, he played it smarter. Canada announced a new energy security and climate strategy. It sounded positive, but the details mattered. New export contracts to the US required climate impact assessments. Existing contracts faced surcharges, funding Canadian renewables. Canada planned to send more oil and gas to Asia, not just the US. It wasn't a shutdown, it was a strategic redirection. The US couldn't easily attack a policy wrapped in climate-friendly language. The timing was perfect. Global energy markets were tight, and even a hint of disruption sent ripples through the US economy. Carney didn't need to stop the flow, just introduce uncertainty. It was a masterclass in economic statecraft. Trump's reaction? Explosive. "They can't do that to us, we're the United States," he reportedly yelled. Within an hour, Trump was on social media, firing off all-caps posts. "Canada is trying to rip us off with their fake climate plan." Mark Carney became the villain in Trump's narrative. The public feud made Trump look emotional, while Canada appeared calm and rational. Canadian officials gave quiet interviews explaining their strategy. The contrast was stark. Trump's bluster versus Canada's composure. Media headlines blared, "Trump goes nuts as Canada plays Trump card." Trump's outrage became the main event, overshadowing the policy details. But this time it backfired. His emotional outburst made the US look weak and reactive. He focused on the insult, missing the strategic brilliance of Carney's move. The world saw who was really in control, and the pressure on Washington only grew. Why did this hit so hard? Because the US energy system is built around Canada. Refineries in the Midwest and Gulf Coast are designed for Canadian oil. They can't just switch to something else. Electrical grids in northern states rely on Canadian hydro to prevent blackouts. Natural gas pipelines heat millions of homes in winter. Canada isn't just a supplier, it's part of the system. The shock was realizing this vulnerability. The US spent decades reducing dependence on the Middle East, never imagining Canada could use energy as leverage. Carney understood this dependency better than anyone in Washington. By shaking that cornerstone, he revealed the fragility of the entire structure. The impact wasn't just in the White House, it hit Americans' wallets. The threat of disruption sent oil prices soaring. Gas prices jumped within days, squeezing family budgets. Higher energy costs meant higher prices for groceries, school supplies, and more. Farmers paid more for fuel and fertilizer. Factories paid more for power. Trucking costs rose, and those increases hit consumers. Energy inflation seeped into every corner of the economy. Political pressure on Trump skyrocketed. It wasn't just a diplomatic spat, it was a kitchen table issue for millions. Trump's promise of prosperity was threatened by a move from Canada. The pressure to act became immense. National security isn't just about armies, it's about stable, affordable energy. Carney's move turned foreign policy into a domestic crisis. The standoff became a tense diplomatic chess match. The Trump administration considered tariffs, but that would hurt both sides. Legal action was slow and uncertain. Canada's climate framing made it hard to challenge. Ultimately, the US had to negotiate. For the first time, America came to the table as a partner, not a boss. Canada had its own demands: trade, environment, respect. The episode was a lesson in modern diplomacy. Power isn't just military or GDP. It's about controlling resources and understanding vulnerabilities. Canada, the nice guy, showed it had a sharp edge. They played a smarter game, and the US had to follow. The crisis ended not with a bang, but a handshake. Canada softened some regulations. The US made concessions and acknowledged Canada's importance. The era of taking Canadian resources for granted was over. The relationship became more balanced and honest. Washington realized it needed to diversify energy and accelerate renewables. Carney's move became a powerful argument for solar in Arizona and wind in Texas. The story is a parable for the 21st century. Power is about resources and strategy, not just armies. Even the closest allies have their own interests. The US learned that being a superpower doesn't mean ignoring your neighbors. And it all started with a quiet Canadian banker reminding a loud president that even the friendliest neighbors have their limits.